find God. And there is Jesus, transfigured right before their eyes. We've heard this over and over again. His face became dazzling, his robes were white, and suddenly appeared Moses and Elijah on either side of him. And part of the reason that Moses and Elijah were there was to send a message that Jesus stands among the greats. Moses, a reminder of the law, symbolic of the law, the tradition that people lived their lives through. Moses, who got the Ten Commandments from God, that's why he represents the law, the Torah, the Talmud. And then there was Elijah, the great prophet. And so Jesus stands among the greats. And the thing with the two of them is they had apocalyptic deaths, which means that we don't really know. Tradition tells us that we don't know if they died or how they died, but they went to heaven. And so, because of that, Jesus stands in line with them. That gives us a kind of a foreshadowing that Jesus' death and resurrection, as we know it, will be different than the rest of us, right? That Jesus will rise. Peter gets so excited that he says, okay, let's build some tents. This is great. But the thing I think a lot of people miss is that Peter, for the first time that we've heard so far, is he calls Jesus Lord. And what that does is it takes Jesus out or further, closer to God. Names Jesus as God, and not like as law or prophet, but extends Jesus further. So there is another foreshadowing. We learn that Jesus and all his miracles that are going to take place, that we will see, and that we have seen, are the work of God on earth in the person of Jesus. But then the cloud comes, right? And we hear the voice of God. And that's when the disciples cower. They just go down. It's like, we can't look at this. And fear has the meaning that we usually use, right? Like I'm afraid of something happening. But biblical fear also means that this is too great for me, that I have to come down from this, or I have to come away from it. And that was always, as the Jews knew God, to be feared. But then Jesus touches them and says, do not be afraid. And it was a gentle, loving touch. And they got up, and it was time for them to go. But this whole experience changed their lives. What other times in your lives that you have been changed, that you have been, like whatever it was that had happened, whether it was positive or negative, that you came closer to knowing God? There was, as I share mine, I welcome you to think about yours. There was a time when I was in my 30s, I think, late 20s, early 30s, and I picked up cross-country skiing, and I used to love it. And this one day, the snow had fallen, and it was just like a perfect amount for a cross-country skier. So I grabbed my boots and my skis, and I went out and found a golf course, and I went on the golf course. And if any of you are golfers, don't worry, I didn't go on the greens. I stayed on the edge of the golf course. But anyway, if you've ever been cross-country skiing, it's like running. You're just going and going and going and going. And I had to stop and catch my breath. When I did, I looked up, and it was the most beautiful scene I had ever laid my eyes on. There wasn't a scuff in the snow from any animal, creature, or human. The snow was so beautiful on the trees, and the sky was the most beautiful blue. It was just so pristine. And I just stood there, and I can't tell you how I felt, other than that I remember it like it was yesterday. And that was a God moment for me. There was another time when I was much younger. I was only 7 years old, and my Aunt Mame, who was a favorite aunt of mine, was in the hospital was going to take me to visit her. And I don't know what was in my parents' minds, because I think back then children were not allowed in hospitals. But anyway, so my father and I would go through the doors, and all of a sudden my father stops dead in his tracks. And he must have read "No Children Beyond the Lobby" or something like that. And he turned to me and he said, okay, you're going to do three things. You're going to hold my hand. You're not going to look at anybody. You just look straight ahead. And don't talk to anybody. So he took me by the hand, which is really rare for my father and me. Like I was kind of, you know, like your daddy's little girl or your mother's daughter. I'm like my mother's daughter. I'm not daddy's little girl. But that day, I was daddy's girl. He took my hand in his, and we walked straight to the elevator. We went in the elevator. We went up to the floor. We got out. We took about 5, maybe 10 steps, and we were met with a nurse. Stop. No children allowed. And the nurse and my father exchanged a few words. And the last thing that I remember is the nurse saying, "Is it a private room?" And my father said, "Yes." And she said, "Okay, you can go." An earthquake could have happened. The building could have come down. Anything could have happened. But I was sure that I was okay. I was safe. Because my daddy had my hand. And nothing was going to happen to me. That was a little kid's God moment. I don't know that I put God together with that at that time, but I learned somewhere along the way that safety and that knowing there was somebody stronger than me in my world helped me to understand who God was. But these experiences aren't always positive. Sometimes they're negative. Like Luther. He was going through the Black Forest at the time when he was studying to be a lawyer. I think it was the Black Forest. Anyway, he was met with this crazy storm, rain, thunder, lightning, and he prayed to God. He said, "God, if you spare my life, then I will live in service for you." And that's exactly what happened. His life was spared, he didn't die, and it changed him. He lived in service for God. Change can also happen through touch, as we know that Jesus touched the disciples. And when I talk about touch, please know that I talk about only good touch. Any unwanted touch is bad. I'm not talking about that. I am not talking about abuse. I'm talking about loving, good touch. This little baby, whose picture you might have seen, well, her life was saved because of someone's touch. You might be able to see the gloved hand that saved her. So her life will be forever changed because of touch. But there's also touch that helps us to not be afraid. This, to me, I think was our two college kids after the shootings at the college kind of moment, I'm thinking, because they were there for one another, because it was all too big for them. So today is all about change and how we are changed by our experiences in life, our God experiences, our aha moments, whatever you want to call them. And it was after this that Jesus changed his direction. He made his way to Jerusalem because he knew that was where he had to go. And because of their experience, because of the experience of the disciples, they were changed so that they could now follow Jesus. Their faith might have been a little stronger after this. It would not have been perfect. It would have not, without question. Same as us. We will always have questions. We will sometimes have doubts. But maybe through these experiences, these aha moments, or these God moments in our lives, we will have a little bit of a stronger faith. So, we go down from the mountain. Maybe Andrew had a nice lunch waiting for them. But We need to change over and over and over again, because change brings us to new life in Christ. So I pray that your heart is changed. I pray that your mind is changed. I pray that your spirit continues to change and deepen throughout your life, so that you can always turn and follow Jesus. Will you allow yourself to be changed?